Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of She Talks Business. I am back here with my lovely niece, Mackenzie. If you've been listening to this series, you know that she has been interviewing me on a bunch of things related to starting, growing, and building a business. If you haven't listened to one of our episodes as of yet, let me tell you a little bit about Mackenzie. She is a wellness counselor who specializes in the menstrual cycle and is on a mission to serve those who struggle with period problems through holistic practices. She uses her education and background in psychology and diploma in wellness counseling to help people feel heard and offer alternative solutions so they can not only feel their best, but have a better period naturally. And we're recording this episode, we're releasing this episode actually on I have a little dog who wants up. We are releasing this episode on December 29th because my assumption is that no one really wants to get an email about a podcast. Well, maybe you do on New Year's Day. So we're releasing this one a little bit early and we're going to talk about money today. And I think it's a really great segue into the new year because a lot of people have big goals when it comes to the new year. You know, typically we all want to be healthier, we want to lose a bit of weight, and we want to make more money. So it's a good topic for us to discuss today. Money is something I never, ever, ever grow tired of talking about. So I'm going to hand it over to you. How are you, Mackenzie? Any big plans for New Year's?
I'm good, and I think I might be going to Toronto to see my friend from Vancouver, so that'll be really nice. I'm not sure what we'll get up to, but ringing in the new year with a friend sounds exactly like the way I'd like to do it. How about you?
Cool. We are going to Naples for the weekend to spend New Year's with some of our friends in the community where we used to live. So we'll be heading up there for a couple of days and then I don't want to say racing back, but racing back on the first so we can watch the football games that are on that day. So it's going to be a full and exciting weekend. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm really excited about 2024. I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's because my birthday is on the 24th of March. And so the number 24 to me is a good number. It just feels like this year is going to be a good year. I don't know why. I'm just feeling very optimistic about the future. So I'm excited. I hope
That's
all of you listening have a wonderful, wonderful 24. And I hope you do some things to bring in the new year that are meaningful. You know, one of the things that I will be doing this year, one of the practices that I like to put in place, there's a few things. One is I will be taking some time to send out some thank you notes to people who have made an impact on my life this past year. The other thing that I like to do between Christmas and New Year's is I like to read The Alchemist. And I've read this book many, many, many times because it's just a reminder that sometimes the path you think you're on isn't the path you end up taking, but you always end up at the right destination. And so I like that book because the story really resonates with me. And then I've been following this guy on Instagram, Jesse somebody. I don't know his name. I should know his name. All I know, he's married to Sarah Blakely. And one of the things that he talks about doing every year to ring in the new year is letting go of some things. So he goes through his closet and he gets rid of all the stuff that he no longer wears or uses and donates it to Goodwill. And he goes through his office and he gets through all the stuff that he doesn't want. So he's really creating an environment for abundance to receive new stuff in the new year. And I am doing that this year.
Have you done that before?
I've always sent out cards at the end of the year, either a holiday card with a personalized message or thank you cards or a happy new year card. Like I've always typically I will sit down and I use my phone and I'll go back to the very beginning of the year and I scroll through every day of the year to remind myself of the things that I've done over the course of the past year. Because a year goes by so fast and sometimes we look back and we think, oh, that was a crappy year. Oh, that was a great year. But we're generalizing. And so I like to get specific. I like to look at things and go, oh, you know, who did I work with this year? Where did I go? What did I travel to? What did I do? What events did I attend? I like to actually take inventory of how I spent my life the past 12 months. And I feel like when I do that, I have a tremendous sense of gratitude for what I've experienced. And when I don't do that, I don't feel that way because it's just normal, right? And so sometimes we have to do things like that to remind ourselves of the greatness that really does exist in our lives.
Mm. I love that. And I love even the turn of phrase. I've been thinking about a lot of how I've spent my day or spent my life. And it's that same phrasing in terms of money and how are we, using the abundance of time that we have in a way that fills us up. And I love that taking inventory and yeah, getting to know your year a little bit more and seeing just how much abundance there might already be in your
Hmm.
life. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also I just finished reading a book called Die with Zero. And it's a really good book about really like it's about money actually, and it's about making sure that you have enough money for the future, but you're spending money in the right places and times. And so one of the things that the author talks about is, if you have an inheritance to give to people, why wait until you die to give it to them? Why don't you give it to them while you're alive so that they can enjoy it? And he talks about the golden years. And the golden years for people, we all think the golden years are after you retire, but they're actually not. The golden years are really probably your mid 40s to your mid 60s, because after your mid 60s, most people's health starts to deteriorate in some way. And when you get into your mid 70s or mid 80s, you don't necessarily want to travel and do all the things that you aspire to do when you're younger. And so this book is just really making me rethink how I want to live the next decade of my life when I still have my health and energy and drive to do the things that I want to do in life.
I'm so curious what that looks like, what the next decade looks like for you.
Yeah, we'll see. I started a bucket list.
Oh, exciting. Perfect. We love bucket lists. This
Yes.
is a great way to get into the topic of money. And you mentioned a book, and that's something we've bonded over often is books. And I think that would be a great and easy way to start. What are some books that you recommend when you're starting to reflect on your finances, your abundance, your mindset? What are some books that you typically recommend to people?
There's a bunch of books. So the first one that changed my life was Rich Dad Poor Dad. When I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, all of a sudden I understood money in a completely different way. Rich Dad Poor Dad made us decide to sell our house that we had built and to buy a fixer upper so that we could actually eliminate our mortgage significantly faster. It really got us on the path of understanding what it meant to create wealth in our lives. Another book that I read was The Millionaire Maker by Laura Langmeyer. And in that book, I realized that we had access to more money than we realized we did. So sometimes what happens is, you have money, but you don't think you have enough money. And so the Millionaire Maker really helped me to get clear on kind of what your net worth is and where you can access money and how to use money to make more money. So that was a really, really good book. And then there's another book that I recommend all the time. It's a business book. It's called The Ultimate Blueprint for an Insanely Successful Business, and it's by Keith Cunningham. And this book is really all about financial stuff related to business and how to run your business and how to understand things like your P&L and your balance sheet and some of those things that your accountant shows you and you just kind of glaze over because you don't get what they mean. So those would be three books about money that probably are the top three that I would recommend to anybody wanting to learn about money.
Cool. I love the takeaways from each of them, like that you have more money available to you than you think, and how to use money to make more money, which I think a lot of people that struck me is how do you do that? How do you use money to make more money and really changing your relationship with what that could mean?
Mhm.
And even as you're talking about like, oh, your accountant, your P&L, what how do you approach money as a new business owner when all of a sudden there's money that, oh, you're maybe need to think about taxes in a different way, or all these things that change around money when you start a business that you might not be aware of?
There's a lot of things people are not aware of. Typically, when they start a small business, I've actually had conversations with some of my clients about the fact that when you register a business, there should be a prerequisite course that explains to you everything that you need to do or know related to money. You need to understand, depending on the structure of the business, how you're going to pay taxes, and you need to understand: are you paying personal taxes? Are you paying corporate taxes and personal taxes? So the structure of your business dictates the type of taxes that you pay. The
Mm,
other thing that people need to understand in Canada is depending on how much money your business generates, dictates whether you have to charge HST or GST. And
Mm.
so making sure that you are doing the right things in the right order and that you understand what happens. Like, uh, taxes are terrible if you don't pay them, and they can create the most stress imaginable for a business owner. And they can also cost you a lot of extra money because when you're behind on taxes, you have to pay interest, and the government will charge you a lot of interest when you're behind. So you want to ensure that you have some type of guidance along the way to help you know what things you need to pay for. Another book, while I'm not a fan of like the 7 different bank accounts, Profit First talks about looking at your money and allocating your money to different accounts for the different things that you're going to need to pay. And so literally taking profit off the top, taking taxes off the top, so that those monies are put in different bank accounts as soon as they come into your account, so that you have the money to pay. And then if you set too much aside for taxes, well, guess what? You have money left over at the end of the year, and that's not such a bad thing. But I think it's important that people understand, what is the tax implication? What are things that you can legally write off in your business and not write off in your business? What are the deadlines? What are the due dates for when you have to file and pay taxes? Because for businesses, it's different than personal. Understanding, uh, what your tax implication is based on your business structure. So when you own a corporation, the corporation pays taxes at a lower rate. But then when you take money out of the corporation, you pay taxes again as an employee because you're paying yourself that money. So just like when you get a paycheck, you pay taxes on it. Whereas if you have a sole proprietorship, all the money flows through and you pay taxes on you pay a higher rate of taxes, but you pay it all up front. So at the end of one year, you're done. Whereas if my business in 2023, let's say there's $100,000 in profit left over, well, I'm going to pay corporate taxes on that 100,000. So let's say I pay 20% corporate taxes on the 100,000. Now there's 80,000 left. If I want to withdraw that 80,000 as an owner, I now have to pay taxes again on the 80,000 that I take out. So having a guide, having someone who understands, whether it's an accountant or a bookkeeper or a business coach, but having somebody that can help guide you to understand the movement of money is a really important first step when you're starting your business.
Mm.
Because when you collect money, here's the biggest mistake people make, Mackenzie. Let's just pretend you are in, I think Nova Scotia charges a 15% HST. It's a blended GST and provincial sales tax. So let's say you sell something for $1,000 and you charge tax. You're going to collect $1,150. When
Mm.
that $1,150 goes into your business bank account, the tax money is commingled with the sales dollars that you collected. That $1,150 does not belong to you. It
Right.
belongs to the government. And so people forget that and they spend what they have in the bank. And then they get to the end of the year and they're like, oh shit, I owe that much in taxes. I don't have that much money,
Mm.
because they're not paying attention to, they're not separating or looking at, okay, I've generated X amount of money this year, I'm going to owe Y. Like if you were talking about $1 million here, that would be $150,000, right? So it scales as your business grows. And so making sure that you are segregating what your obligation is to the government as a business owner is really, really important.
Wow. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. This is not where I thought that the money conversation was going to go right away, but because when I think of a business and money, my immediate thought is, oh, pricing, and we'll get into that. But the actual flow of money and how soon in the business it's important to have that guidance. And it almost also sounds like a vote of confidence in yourself. Like as you were talking, I was like, oh, well, I don't need that yet. I'm not at the place where I would. But that's if I believe that I'm going to get there, then I would need that person and that guide. So it also is like an investment. Go ahead.
Your
Yeah.
your first sale, you're at that place.
Yeah.
Your first sale, you now have a fiduciary. I am saying that word wrong. Fiduciary responsibility to the government, because
Hmm.
you owe them money. You owe them taxes on that money, and so it's important that you understand that. Now, there's give and take. When
Mhm.
you buy a new computer for your business and you pay taxes on the computer, you can deduct the taxes you pay from the taxes you owe.
Mm,
But if you're not doing your bookkeeping on a monthly basis and understanding what your tax obligations are, then you're not in a good place. Like we're recording this call early in December. Today's date is the 12th of December, and I have a meeting with my accountant this week to talk about what I'm going to owe in taxes for next year so that I can start planning. And as your
mm,
business grows, I would highly recommend you make installments, like pay your taxes on a monthly or a quarterly basis so that you don't get behind. It's better for you to just put the money aside, and if you overpay, get a refund than not have the money when you need it. The other thing I'll tell you is the first year I made, some serious money in my business, I remember going to my accountant and I think I owed something like $60,000 in taxes. And I had the money, but I got to tell you, it was a surprise. And I
mhm,
certainly didn't want to write a check to the government for $60,000 and watch my cash flow take a great big huge hit,
mhm,
but I had to. And so I learned from that day forward not to wait till the last minute.
mm,
So, the interesting thing is most people wait until March to find out how much they owe in taxes. I find out now what I owe in taxes. Because if, for example, I owe $60,000, then I know I've got December and January and February and March and April to collect that money, to set that money aside. It doesn't have to be a big lump sum shock after the year is over. And
mm,
I'm really good at managing cash flow. Most people are not. So
mhm,
if you're not carrying a good balance in your bank account, you're carrying a very small balance, the year end, if your year end is like January to December 31st, but you're not filing taxes until the end of March and making your payment in April, well, 4 months later, you might not have that money. You might have spent it because you didn't realize you owed it. So
right.
it's just really important to stay on top of it. And I know you want to talk about pricing, but that's why pricing is so important. Because if your profit margins are skinny, then you're going to spend your tax dollars instead of setting them aside to pay your tax obligation.
It's really, I hear you talk about money and have had the privilege of hearing you talk about money for a long time. And you always talk about, looking at your numbers and being aware. And that's what this is also striking me as, is like from the get-go being okay with looking at your numbers and also okay with hiring help. And I'm curious, what, as a person starting a business who doesn't know these things, what are the three action steps that I should be taking? I'm hearing an accountant or some kind of guide. I'm hearing a business account. Yeah, what are some things now that I and other people listening to this are starting their business, that some actionable things they can do to know that they're on the right path in managing their money?
Google is your friend.
Mm,
Google small business tax obligations in whatever state or province you live in, federal tax obligations for small businesses. Ask different business owners that how do you manage taxes? What are the different taxes that I have to pay? You're always going to have to pay potentially a corporate tax, a um, personal tax, payroll tax, and sales tax, HST, those types of taxes. So understand what the taxes are that you're going to have to pay. And you can find that out by asking people, but you can also use the internet to research, what are beginner money things? What does every new business need to know about taxes in, and then enter the country, the state, the province, wherever it is that you live, and read information about that. There's probably lots of books out there that can guide you on that stuff. I'm sure there's podcasts and things where you can learn about that stuff too. So really immerse yourself in the learning so that you know.
really taking ownership of that knowledge.
Yeah, and if you are, worst case scenario, or the best thing you could do is every time you sell something, just set 20% aside.
Mm,
If you just take 20% off the top, if when you open your bank for your business, you open two bank accounts and they're connected, every time money goes into your bank account, take 20% and just dump it into the other account.
mm,
Because if you take 20% off the top and you dump it into the other account, then by the end of the year, you're going to have a nest egg in that other account, and you're going to be able to figure out, okay, how much of that do I have to pay in taxes? And you can take it away. If 20 doesn't seem like enough, put 30 in there, but take take 30% of the dollars, not just the sales, but the dollars, because the dollars will include the taxes too, right? And
Mhm.
then the other thing that I would say is if you are in Canada and you're listening to this, and I know some of our listeners are in Canada, and I only have experience with taxes in Canada and the US, but in Canada, you don't have to pay GST or HST until your business has generated, I think it's $30,000 a year. When I started my business, I charged it from day one. Do you know
Mm.
why? Do you know why? Because my ego said, there's no way I'm going to let somebody think that I don't make $30,000 a year. No way I'm going to let them think that my business is smaller than that. So I'm going to charge HST from the very beginning because I'm going to grow this thing and it's going to be bigger than 30,000. Maybe it won't be the first year, but it will be by the second year. And I am determined to make that happen. So I'm just going to start with the right structure in place and do it right from the beginning. No government is going to say, "Oh, no, you don't have to pay us. That's okay." They're going to take your money. And it just puts the practice in place from day one.
Yeah, and the confidence in your business to grow to that level. And that's ties into the pricing and the confidence around money is I think it's really tough going into business when you have those money mindset issues because now you are the face of your business and you are the person setting the pricing and you're the person that's selling and going into those meetings saying this is how much I charge. How do you start to set your prices, especially with that perhaps lack of confidence in your ability to generate wealth or just I think lack of confidence in general in the beginning?
So there's two things that I would say, answers that I would give you to that question. The first thing is I believe that a lot of money mindset issues are really math issues. And
Hmm.
if people really understood the math side of the business and they really understood pricing and they really understood profit and they really understood taxes, if they understood the math, then they wouldn't have the mindset issues that they have. But because they don't understand the mathematical mechanics, their mindset gets tripped up because they don't know what they're dealing with.
Hmm.
And so it's that uncertainty, that ambiguity that creates more of the mindset issue. If I told you that if you charge somebody $100 for this widget, for example, it's going to cost you $20 every single time, would you charge $100 for it? Or would you increase the fee to at least 120 so that it didn't cost you money?
Hmm. Increase the
You'd
fee.
increase the fee. If you knew that it was going to cost you money, if you knew that you were bleeding money every time you sold something because you were pricing too low, then you wouldn't sell it because why would you do it? Why would you sell a product or a service to lose money unless you're in the grocery store business and you're trying to get people to the back of the store? That's not the model. So
Hmm.
when you understand the math in your business, then your mindset comes along because you understand the actual number, what the number needs to be to make sense. So
Hmm.
that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing that I would say is do it scared.
Hmm.
Do it scared. You are no worse off. So you have a new customer in front of you today, and I say, "Hey, if you'd like to work with us, it's $5,000." And they say, "Yes, great. I'm $5,000 in the gain." If they say no, I'm still in the same spot I was when I had the conversation with them. I'm no worse off. I'm no worse off because somebody said no.
Hmm.
So be brave enough to charge what you believe you're worth, and there will be a self-selection process where some people are going to say yes and some people are going to say no, and
Hmm.
that's okay. You're not meant to be for everybody. You're meant to be for the people who see the value in what you do.
Hmm.
So I think sometimes you just have to be brave enough to ask for more money.
Hmm.
And I think when you understand what it costs to run your business and you understand what it is that you want to make, then it becomes easier for you to calculate the math. So I'm going to give you an example.
Hmm.
A lot of times when I work with people and they are new business owners, the goal is I want to make $100,000 a year. That's what I want. I want to make six figures. I want to make $100,000 a year. And so I'll take my trusty calculator and I'll say, okay, so you want to make $100,000. Let's role play this. You want to make $100,000 a year, Mackenzie.
Hmm.
How many weeks of the year do you want to work? How many weeks do you want to take off for vacation?
3.
You want 3 weeks vacation. Okay. And do you want to take the week off between Christmas and New Year's too, or do you want to work the week before Christmas and New Year's?
I'd like the week off.
Okay, so now we're up to 4 weeks, right?
Yeah,
Oh, what about all those long weekends that happen throughout the year? Do you want all those long weekends? You gonna take the stat holidays off?
not always.
No? Maybe there's 10 of them. How many would you like?
5.
5. Okay.
Yeah,
So
another
now we're
week.
up to 5 weeks off. All
Hmm.
right. And if you took all of them, which most people do because they don't want to work because most of their customers are not working on the stat holidays. So let's just bump you up to 6. So if we take 52 minus 6, we're now down to 46 weeks.
Mm.
So out of 46 weeks, you're not going to be booked at capacity 100% of the time, are you? Like it's
No.
impossible for you to have a, business every single day. So let's just say you're booked at capacity 75% of the time. Okay. 75% of 46, that's 34 and a half weeks. So 34.5 weeks, if we take $100,000 and we divide it by 34.5 weeks, oh, that's wrong. 100,000 divided by 34.5. That is, no, that's wrong. Yes, that's right. 100,000 divided by 34.5 equals $2,898 per week that you need to generate. If you divide that by 5 days of the week, you need to generate $579 per hour. If you're only working 75% of the time, because you know you're not going to be booked at capacity 100% of the time, 75% of 8 hours is what, 6? So take 579 divided by 6 hours a day. You need to charge a minimum of $97 an hour in order to make $100,000, assuming that you are booked 75% of the time, but you're probably not. You're probably booked 50% of the time. So
Right.
if you're only booked 50% of the time, then you probably need to charge $150 an hour at minimum to make that. And so then
Mm.
I look at it and I go, well, I have $150 an hour to make 100,000, but I'm going to have expenses. So if I'm going to add all those expenses in, I probably need to charge $200 an hour or $250 an hour. This is where all of a sudden the math
Mm.
starts to bring the mind along because you're looking at reality. People they look and they have 52 weeks of the year. I want to make 100,000. I only need is 2,000 a week. All I need is 500 a day. It's like, no, you're not
Right.
going to work 5 days a week and you're not going to be booked 5 days a week because out of those 5 days, you're going to need time to work on the business, to do your marketing, to create your content, to have sales conversations. And so you got to drill down and then look at it and say, all right, I really only have X amount of time each week for billable hours. So let's go
Mm.
back and say 52 minus 6, we're down to 46 weeks of the year. 46 weeks, if you are working 50% of that times 50%, that means you'd be working 23 weeks of the year. Not really 23, but you know what I mean. 50% of the time means that you would be billing for 50% of the time, which equates to 23 weeks. So 100,000 divided by 23 weeks is 43.47, divided by 5 days a week is $869. Divided by 8 hours is $109 an hour. So when you start to play with the numbers this way, you start to see you can't afford not to charge what the fee is if you want to make the money that you want to make. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but there are certain things that people are not going to pay $108 an hour for. So, you okay? Something
Yeah.
fell.
Something else, but we're good.
Um, so you have to also look at the value that you provide to your buyer and ask yourself, am I creating enough value for my customer to justify this investment?
Mm.
And when you can create enough value to justify the investment, then it becomes a lot easier for you to actually get somebody to say yes, because you're not just selling on price, you're selling on the value, the benefits, the outcome that people will have as a result of doing business with you.
Thank you so much for taking me through that because I was like struggling with the math and the mindset piece. But once you brought me through that, I started to see that I'm not with that formula and with that exercise and with looking at the numbers. I'm no longer setting the price based on what I think would be a good number out of thin air. It's based on, like you said, reality, what my goals are, and then increasing the confidence in not only knowing the numbers, but like you said, bridging the gap between the value and what I'm charging. So that was really,
Okay,
really helpful.
good.
Yeah.
Another way to look at it is take your $100,000 and divide it by $100, which means you have to work 1,000 hours, 1,000 billable hours. Take 1,000 billable hours and divide it by the 46 weeks. And that means you need to be fully occupied 22 hours a week in order to generate that amount of money. And
Mm.
now you can look at your calendar every week and you can say, do I have 20 hours worth of calls? Yes or no? Yes or no? And you can see whether or not you're driving. If you want that number to be cut in half, then you need to raise your price to $200 an hour.
Mm, I see. And then, because we had talked about like offering for free and the generosity and affording to be generous with the number that you choose for pricing. And I was curious how to balance that, what you should be offering for free and what you feel that you should be charging for. Because I could easily be like, all of this is free, but then I'm not generating any income, and then it's not really the business that I want to have. Could you talk to that a bit?
So I think that a lot of people fall into the trap of when they start something, they think they have to do it for free to get experience. And I don't believe that. I believe that you already have experience. Why do you need to do it for free? You've already demonstrated. Maybe you can't charge $100 out of the gate. Maybe you have to start at 40 or 50 or 60 and work your way up. Maybe every single time you quote a price to somebody, you increase it by $10 until you get, to where you want to be. I mean, when I first started in my business, I charged $1,500 a day to spend a day with me. I charge 15,000 now. So
Mm,
it's a 10x increase in what I charge, but there's a huge curve in terms of my own learning, the experience that I have, the investments I've made in myself over the last 15 years to get there. So
mhm,
we all have to start somewhere and then grow, right? So I think that the free stuff should really be a downloadable, something free that doesn't require your time and effort, or the free stuff needs to be consultation based. So when somebody wants to book a call with me because they want
mhm,
to talk to me about working with me, my question is, are you inquiring about my services or are you looking for coaching? Because if you're looking for coaching, I don't coach people for free. I have a one-time, one-use coaching call. It's $500 and it's for 45 minutes and it's a one-use call for
mm,
somebody who wants to try on coaching because they're not sure if I'm the right coach. So they want me to advise them and so they can see. You can use that once. And if you decide that you want to enroll in a coaching or advisory program with me, I'll credit you that initial investment back. But I don't get on a call to tell people what to do in their business for free because
mm,
that's not fair to the people that pay me for my advice. So when I get on a call with somebody for free, there's two things that happen. First, before I get on that call, I ask them a series of questions to qualify what they're looking for before I actually have the conversation. And
mm,
second, when I get on that call, what I'm doing is I'm trying to understand their needs so that I can tell them the best way I can help them,
mm,
not so that I can help them. There's a difference. Uncovering needs so that I can decide in my mind, can I help you or not, is very different from me listening to what's going on and trying to help you in the moment.
mm,
So the call that is free is it's a discovery call of sorts. It's trying to find out if we are the right match to work together. Because
mm,
if I don't think I can help you, I'm not going to try to sell you something because then you're not going to be happy because I wasn't able to help you. I'm not going to be happy because you weren't the right fit. So the call is for both parties to really decide whether or not there is resonance here and whether or not you have the ability to help solve the problem that your buyer has.
Mm,
So I will do that for free if you pre-qualify. So I have a couple criteria for that.
mhm,
One, if a valued client of mine refers someone to me, I will always take the call out of respect for them.
mm,
If it is a random person on the internet who reaches out to me, I have a series of questions on my website that I will ask them about their business, the size of their business, what their goals are, et cetera, et cetera. And then depending on how they answer those questions, I will respond and ask more questions, or I will respond and give them a certain amount of information before we move forward to the call phase. Because I
mm,
want to make sure that they're qualified. I want to make sure that, before I spend my time on a conversation with somebody, if I'm going to tell somebody that my coaching fee is X amount per year and they're looking to spend 10% of that, well, it's probably not the right time for us to have a conversation. So that's why I try to vet in advance whether or not it's the right fit, the right person to work with me.
mm. What I'm really sitting with is the difference between trying to figure out the needs to meet them in that moment versus whether working together would be beneficial, what it sounds like for both parties at the time.
Yeah, the difference between solving the problem versus identifying whether I can solve the problem. Now,
Mm,
that doesn't mean that I won't give you a little bit of advice, when I'm on the call, but
mhm,
it's done intentionally. So it's done from a manner of, oh, yes, Mackenzie, I can help you with that. I've helped people with this problem before. And the way that we do that is we do this, this, and this. Here's one thing that you might want to try as a result of our call today that can help you in your business right now. I'm telling them the process. I'm telling them what, I'm not telling them how. If you want me to guide you through the how, then we need to do the work together.
right. Do you see that a lot with clients starting out of wanting to give a lot for free and wanting to, or I guess not
Totally.
how to like make that transition from this is what I can offer versus this is how I can help you?
100% because they lack confidence because they haven't done it enough. And so because they lack confidence, they feel like they have to give away the sun, the star, and the moon to get a client. And why am I going to pay you if you're going to just help me for free?
Right.
What are you going to do when they pay you? What do you have left if you give it all to them for free? You go to Costco and they give you a little tiny sample of the food. They don't give you a whole box to take home and try. And then if you like it, come back and buy it.
Mm, that's very true. So thinking of it as a sample is really helpful in that situation. And I'm really curious why you think business owners have such a hard time when we live in an economy and we're given wages and it's almost like as soon as we're in business for ourselves, accepting money feels scary or like I don't know.
Accepting money doesn't feel scary. Asking for money feels scary.
Hmm.
And a lot of times people who are in business have no sales background. They
Right.
have not worked in sales before, so they don't understand how to sell. And
Hmm.
therefore, when they go to sell, they don't, selling is a skill. They don't understand what the skill is. And because they don't understand how to do it, they muck it up,
Hmm.
just like we do with any skill that we don't understand.
Hmm.
So, I recommend anybody who is a small business owner, if you've never learned how to sell, go get a job in retail. Go
Hmm.
learn how to sell. Go read books about selling. Like, learn what it means to sell. Selling is not a dirty thing. Selling is actually helping somebody make a buying decision. And you
Hmm.
can do that with integrity. You're not trying to convince someone or manipulate someone into giving you money. You're trying to help them make a buying decision and help them decide whether you're the person who can help them or maybe you're not. But if you don't have the skill of selling, then it's going to feel, the conversation with your customers is always going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to take it very personally. And There's a difference between selling widgets and selling you.
Yeah.
As soon as you start selling you, you get a little bit tripped up because it's just me and it's just my time.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're selling, a widget, you have a cost of goods associated with that widget that you bought, and you're selling a thing, there's less emotional attachment to the thing, but there's a lot of emotional attachment to selling ourselves. Our self-esteem is tied up in it, our self-confidence is tied up in it, our belief in whether or not we're good enough is tied up in it. There's a lot of stuff there that gets in the way if you don't understand how to sell.
Mm. Again, a skill, like really it being a skill where it can be developed like a muscle. And I hadn't ever thought of it that way, of not having the skill of selling being more the pain point or the thing to work on rather than, oh, I just feel awkward or I can't do this, and all these thoughts that we get into in the beginning when we're trying to sell, like you said, ourselves to a client.
Yeah, gamify it. Make it fun. When you put options out there for people, like here's another thing, when you sell, don't sell one thing, give people options. You can do A, B, or C. And make C ginormous. And you'll be surprised that somebody will pick C.
Hmm. I love that, infusing some fun into it. And that kind of leads me to my last question is how to have more fun with money. I see and feel a lot of weight around money, and I don't think it necessarily has to be that way, but when you've only ever experienced it in a certain way, it can feel kind of daunting to think of money being fun. And yeah, any advice you have on that?
Well, I saw this thing on Instagram the other day. I forget who it was that posted it, but I kind of chuckled to myself because she said, self-care isn't a bubble bath, it's multiple streams of income. And I was like, I love that. I think that it's important for you to create rewards for yourself around money. I think it's important to dream big about the things that you want in life. You don't get those things without money. And so if you think about the things that you really want in life and you think, okay, think far out, think in 10 years, I want to be here, 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 and here, then you can start to look at money as a way of helping you have the life that you want. A client of mine, I challenge her every single month to buy herself something to celebrate the sales results in her business.
Mm,
And she has a she has a most enviable closet full of shoes because every month that she surpasses her sales goal, to reward herself, she buys herself a pair of shoes. And
mm,
there was one year that she had had the best year ever in her business. And we went to Saks together and she bought herself a pair of Jimmy Choo running shoes. And
amazing.
it was fun. It was
Mm,
fun. Now, she has a partner in her business who happens to be her husband. And he was having a terrible time allowing himself to buy something symbolic to celebrate the results. But we actually got him to do it. And he bought himself a Toomey briefcase that he could, carry his laptop in. And it was a really important moment because it signified I worked really hard this year. I accomplished a really big goal. And I'm going to reward myself by buying this thing that's fun.
mm,
Every year, I buy myself a really nice bottle of wine at the end of the year. If we have a good year in business, I go out and I buy a nice bottle of wine, and I challenge myself every year to buy a more expensive bottle of wine. So
mm.
the very first year that I did it, I felt sick to my stomach. I spent $150 on a bottle of wine, the most I'd ever spent on a bottle of wine. Like I had to get them to get it out of the case, and it was like, oh my God, like I don't even know if I can drink this. Like it just was like such a big deal to me.
Yeah.
And now every year I push the envelope and I get one a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. It's once a year.
Mhm.
And I do it just because I can. And I do it because it's fun to try something new. And I do it because every year I know that I'm going to celebrate how hard I've worked by rewarding myself with this one thing that
Mm,
I don't normally do throughout the year. It's a reward. It's a fun thing for me to do. So you have to find fun things to do with your money when you start to make it. Set
mm,
aside a certain amount to celebrate the progress that you're making in your business. You
mm,
don't have to sit on money and never spend it. Yes, we all need to save. We all need a nest egg. We all need some cash flow for when things go sideways in life or in business. And we all have to treat ourselves for how hard we work.
Hmm. I think that's a really important takeaway for small business owners of all kinds, but especially where I'm starting, of the possibility of creating more cash flow for yourself and more money, and that it can be fun and it can be rewarding. And the idea, I think going into business for yourself can be really scary, and our brains are trained to look for all the ways it's going to go wrong. And introducing these ways that we can play with money really infuses a sense of hope into what I'm building, you're building, that people want to build for themselves.
When you're brave enough to play with money and not have the attachment to the outcome, remarkable things can happen. I remember years and years ago, I sent a proposal to Alan to review for me. I wanted some feedback, and I had put advisory services in, which didn't have any time attached to it. It was like kind of like an unlimited thing. Like if you need me, whatever, I'll be available. And I didn't know how to price it. And so for 6 months, I had put $3,000 for that service. And so $500 a month. And Alan looked at the proposal and he said, "Oh, it's great, except you priced the advisory wrong. It should be 3,000 a month." And I was like, "Well, I can't charge that." He's like, "Yeah, you can. You will." And I was like, "That's all he said. Yeah, you can and you will."
Hmm.
All right. I can and I will. 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 So I changed the proposal to 2,500 per month, which was 15,000 for 6 months, plus the other stuff that I was quoting. And I sent the proposal off. And the next morning, I got a reply back from the client, and they said, "I have a couple questions about this and this, but yes, this is a go. We're going to do all of it." And I was
Wow.
like, "Holy shit! I almost left $12,000 on the table because I wasn't brave enough to
Hmm.
ask for what someone else thought I was worth."
Right.
So I didn't care. Okay, and this is a really important thing to end on. I
Mhm.
didn't care if they chose the service or not. If they chose the service, great. I was happy to do the work. But if they chose to do the other stuff and not bring me in as an advisor, I was okay with that. I wasn't attached to their decision. And I
Hmm.
think that's a really important distinction when it comes to selling.
Hmm.
Where we get tripped up about money is we get attached. We get attached to what other people decide to do, and then we take it personally. And when we hear no, it's like a personal rejection. And it's not. It's just don't be attached to the outcome. Move on to the next person and be brave enough to try some crazy ass stuff like charging 5 times more than what you were originally going to charge and see what happens.
Mm, bringing play into all of it. And that is really important note to end on. And what's really cool is the connection between money and attachment styles in relationship, and how they can kind of be intertwined, and really letting go of the expectation in all aspects of life can really open up for possibility, because we can have such a narrow view of what's possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, great questions as usual, Mackenzie. You have a really great ability to ask good questions, and then a great ability to drill down on key things and double click on questions. It's an art. Most people are not good listeners. Most people are thinking about what they want to say, not listening to what people are actually saying. And I just want to acknowledge that, because I know one of the things that's important to you in the work that you do is making sure that your clients feel heard.
Mhm.
And definitely, I feel like you're listening to me when we do this work together. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
All right. So for those of you who are listening, you've got some money stuff to think about. I want you to gamify 2024. What would happen if you put a crazy offer out there that's 5 times what you normally charge and see what happens? I encourage you to spend some time between now and the end of the first week of January thinking about what you could do to really disrupt your patterns with money so that you can create a lot more abundance and wealth for yourself and your business in 2024. Thanks so much for listening to this final episode of the year on She Talks Business. And if you haven't left us a review yet, I'm always asking for reviews. You know why? Because people make decisions around listening to podcasts based on the reviews that other people have written. People make decisions around listening to podcasts based on the things that other people share. And so, while this podcast is in the top 5% of podcasts out there, I'd like it to do even better. I'd like the message to reach more people. So if you really got value from this episode or any of our other episodes, and you'd be willing to share them or leave a review, I would be very grateful. And with that, I want to wish you a happy, happy, happy new year, and wish you abundance and good health and lots of positivity for the year to come. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next year.